Hello and welcome to another Digital Zone. My name is Cas Majid and I'm the Chief Exec of WOW Group of Companies. We're a digital agency based in Birmingham and London with various different brands within our organisation. I'm delighted today to welcome Sajid Gulzar OBE to share his real digital story. But before I ask Sajid his first question, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background to this amazing man. So Sajid is currently the Chief Executive of a multi-academy trust based here in Birmingham. He served as a head teacher of a lead school over a number of years, leading it to an outstanding Ofsted rating. Sajid's expertise particularly is improvement, leadership and change management, and he's really known for turning failed schools around, going in and improving them. Sajid is also sits on the West Midlands Head Teacher Board, advising the regional schools, and also lectures at the University of Birmingham.
Guest lecturer, Kasim, guest lecturer.
Guest lecturer. In MEd on leadership in education. Sajid also, in September of last year, started a project in Pakistan focusing on professional development of teachers working with children with special needs and disabilities, and a fantastic accolade that was bestowed on you last year, that you were given the OBE for services to education. Sajid, I've missed some things out there. The list goes on and on. You've done some amazing, amazing things. But my first question is, I'm going to take you right back to when you told me yesterday that you started your career in 1997. So let me just give you the backdrop of 1997. Tony Blair just come into government.
Remember that well.
We had dial-up internet.
We did.
Free serve, you could get on magazines with a CD, so you could get onto the internet. Windows 95 was all the rage. The Nokia 6610 was the standard phone. And the Motorola StarTAC was the phone that everyone envied, the flip phone. Phone. There was no Google.
No.
It was Alta Vista, Lycos, Excite, and Ask Jeeves. Remember Ask Jeeves? Fujifilm developed their first digital camera, and it was 0.3 pixels.
Wow.
Right? And there was no words such as blog, vlog, and there was certainly no Facebook,
no
Twitter, or LinkedIn. So take me back to 1997. You've started your career. You've gone into the school, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, probably no grey hairs.
Not a single one. No.
Tell me, what kind of technology was it that you had to deal with when you were at school then?
You've missed the most important thing from 1997. I started as a trainee in 97.
Yeah.
And probably the thing that was dominating my life digitally at the time was Championship Manager 2. So...
Yeah, of course.
many a night spent trying to win the European Cup on Championship Manager 2. That was probably the thing that dominated. I'd just got my first PC, I think, in '96.
Yeah.
Second year of uni, '96. I got my first PC, and I discovered Championship Manager, and the rest is history. I spent so many hours playing that. In the end, I had to stop because it was either that or my dissertation, and I had to stop. So, going in as a trainee, if I remember back to my first school as a trainee, I spent a year. There was a school in Nechells. I can't remember there being much tech in the school. There might have been a small bank of PCs for staff to use, 3 or 4.
Yeah.
There certainly weren't any computers in the classrooms, and I think they were cutting edge because they had whiteboards for whiteboard marker pens.
Yes,
that was pretty cutting edge at the time, I think.
Yeah.
My first job proper was in '99 as a qualified teacher.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a big government scheme to get teachers up to speed with their digital skills. You know, how to use Word and Excel and Publisher, you know, and things like that. And you had to do this course. It was a series of twilight sessions, and then you got a certificate to say that you were up to spec digitally. And I remember the negativity around it from, you know, the old the old diehard, the teachers that have been in the staff room since the 60s and 70s, you know, they just weren't going to engage with it at all. And again, I can't remember there being a lot for kids. I think there was probably a small bank of computers somewhere. And it was anything that you did do was very, very basic, you know, word art and stuff like that. It wasn't much more than that. Interestingly, actually, my first experience in school was in 1985 in the final year of primary school, which is one of our schools now, one of the schools in our trust, one of the schools that we've had the privilege to go in and work with. And in 1985, I was in what is now year 6. And we had one of the first 2 computers given to the school, or the school had bought, I don't know. And it just sat in the corner of the classroom, and we didn't know what it was, we didn't know what it did. And eventually we started playing that. I don't know if you remember that tennis game, you know, the two bars and the ball. I can't remember the name of the game. But eventually I got on and spent 10 or 15 minutes playing that game. That was it. That was my first experience.
Wow.
And between 85 and 99 in schools, I don't think a lot changed.
No.
In a lot of schools, I don't think there was a lot of change.
No.
So that was my early experience of it. I think I was probably doing more at home, having, you know, used PCs at university, and then buying one in 96. And so I'd had a PC for a few years, so there were bits and pieces that, you know, I'd experimented with doing a bit of planning on the computer, you know, floppy disks and all that kind of stuff. But largely a lot of the stuff was still handwritten. You know, we still had our planning books, and a lot of stuff was and even worksheets, a lot of them were handwritten or photocopied out of a book. You know. And
were you still using acetate and OHPs and stuff like that?
Assemblies, acetate, OHPs, absolutely. I mean, that was one of my biggest
PowerPoint.
Fears. My biggest fear at the time was having to do an assembly and use acetates. That was a big thing. And you know, the person that held the acetates and the acetate markers, they were the gatekeepers in that school. You know, real holders of power.
I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, but I remember, I mean, seeing the first computer in our school. It was the BBC Micro. It was the standard powerful PC. Schools, and they used to wheel it in underneath the TV with the video all cabineted up, and like, wow, this is like amazing. And and then at uni, I mean, I was at uni till probably 95. I used to play a game called Gorillas. And it was called in D-Base, and used to have gorillas on buildings, and you used to have to put the angle and the trajectory and the speed of how far they could chuck the banana to kill the other gorilla. Amazing game. We used to play hours and hours and hours on it, you know, missing lectures and everything else. So coming back to like 99, when did you see that shift start happening, when technology and digital per se has always been around, but it was technology then. Digital really happened probably in 2006, that whole globalization. When did you start seeing this being accessed and given to children to help with their learning?
The first school that I worked at, where there was a computer suite, and there were timetable lessons, and we had the whiteboards and laptops that connected to the whiteboards, and we could use all manner of technology within our teaching. I moved to a school called Yew-Tree in Aston. And if you know Aston, if you know the Doug Ellis stand of Villa Park, Yew-Tree school sort of adjacent to that Victorian building. And I went there in 2001, I think. And I was given a laptop. There was a whiteboard in the classroom. There was a computer suite, and there'd been a lot of investment in Aston through Aston, something called Aston Pride, which is a community fund, quite a large. I think it was £50 million actually, and quite a chunk of that. And the school that I eventually became head at, Prince Albert, that was one of the leading schools at the time. But a lot of investment had happened in Aston schools. And I was a real beneficiary of that. So, you know, all of a sudden, you know, you've got a laptop, it's hooked up to the whiteboard, you're able to demonstrate things on a screen, you know, shapes and angles, and even you know, play videos and things like that. Very, very basic at that time, but it was an absolute mind blower for me. And then you had this computer suite, so you were actually teaching formal lessons, and it was still fairly rudimentary stuff that you were teaching the kids. You know, it was the very, very basics of how to log on and use Word, and you know, a lot of the Microsoft stuff. So it was still very, very basic. But having said that, there was far more of a culture of using technology to enhance teaching and to teach children specifically about the tech.
Yeah, and presumably that was a challenge for the teachers, because you know they've probably done things in a different way previously. So how did you, I mean, I know you're a very kind of forward-thinking guy. How did you then change your style of working? Was it a natural thing that you think, or were you kind of a bit of a technophobe and thought, you know what, I've got to get on with this and just learn it? Or was it kind of, was it right, this is benefiting me and enhancing the experience of the children? How did you kind of get that around that mindset?
It was really, really interesting, actually, in complete contrast that first experience in '99 of a school where things were being brought in. Yeah. And, you know, like I said, there wasn't really a culture of technology, and staff were learning this stuff at the same time. Some of us had PCs at home, and other people had never been near a computer. Yeah. So there's a lot of resistance. But by the time I got into this school, U-Tree, there was already a culture there, an established culture of, you know, this stuff enhances. So, I mean, I think with technology over the years, I think at some point somewhere probably was I had elements of technophobia about me. Yeah. But also I could see how much easier things could be. How much there's one of my senior leadership colleagues who's a real sort of really dynamic leader in terms of tech within schools. And real visionary, and he talks about tech doing the heavy lifting, and that's how I not using that term for it, but I think back then that's how I saw it, you know. So I could spend lots and lots of time, you know, hand drawing an angle on a piece of, and then I can't manipulate it in any way. And once I finish writing on a piece of chart paper, that's it. Or I could use a digital screen, and it gave me much more flexibility, and it saved a lot of time, you know. Yeah. And if you're designing resources or you know, content for a lesson, it can really easily be modified and changed, and you know, and all of that sort of thing. I really saw the benefit of that. So and also, you know, you go to school, you hand a brand new laptop. It's, you know, I think they got that element of it. They did really well in terms of how that culture was developing within the school. And I was fairly young at the time, fairly young in service, so it kind of appealed to me as something fresh and something new and something you know, innovative. But also it just, I mean, you know, teachers are very, very busy. I had young children at home at the time, and it just saved me a whole heap of time compared to, you know, handwriting planning every week. Yeah, you know, for example, it just saved me a lot of time.
And in terms of kind of I know you've kind of, you know, you manage many different schools now as part of your academy trust. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to me about when it's not worked so well? Where you think, well, actually, you know what, because a lot of people talk about how it enhances your life and how it's brilliant. And where, I mean, I'm in the industry and I understand how it does all of that, and it does amazing things. And I was talking this morning about digital transformation, and digital transformation, people really focus on efficiency and the technology and profit and all that kind of stuff. But digital transformation really is about changing the way people think and people work and how they look at things. And that's, digital transformation has to be at the heart of that. Yeah. And all too often the resistance is not so much the technology, because the technology works. It's the adoption of that technology. Yeah. And I know that many a government, you know, implementation has gone wrong because it's not been implemented correctly, etc., etc. So can you give me some examples of where you think, well, that was absolutely disastrous, and why you think that happened?
I think you just hit the nail on the head. Over the years, I've seen many schools where a lot of money's been spent on a lot of tech, and it's been done without a plan. It's been done without a strategy. It's been done without really an outcome in mind. And what that has ended up being, and I'll give you some examples. What that has ended up being is a lot of money spent on a lot of expensive tech that is used sparingly and then left gathering dust. And that's happened. I mean, you know, from schools purchasing very expensive. There were these digital tables that you'd have in early years settings that the kids can manipulate, and you know, sound and shapes and all manner of things. And they were very expensive, and a head would see that another school was using it, and then they'd buy it, and there'd be no strategy, there'd be no training, there'd be no, you know, it'd be left for teachers to kind of, and you know, again, teachers are very busy, and if they don't understand something, they don't see the benefit of something, they'll just revert to what they're doing that they know works. You know, banks of tablets being bought, banks of iPads being bought, you know, even down to, you know, digital microscopes in primary schools, but not backed up by a clear plan, a clear strategy in terms of what impact you want this to have, what outcomes do you want from the children, what's your plan in upskilling and training the teachers in order that they can really make good use of the tech. And I think to some extent I've been guilty of that, you know. I was very fortunate to go to Apple in California last Easter, and it completely changed my thinking in terms of how we use technology in schools. And you know, Prince Albert in the past has been a beacon school for tech. You know, we especially around about the time I became head, and this isn't because of me. Already had this reputation, and I was able to work with colleagues to continue that for a few years. And I think recently we've kind of fallen behind the curve a little in terms of innovation and creativity, and what the visit to California did for me was really kind of sharpen my focus in terms of really thinking about the tech that we have in school and how we're using the technology to enhance learning, to reduce workload. What really is it there for? What's the purpose? How are we using it? And are we making good use of it? So I think we've got a far better strategy since that visit than we had prior to it. And the other things that we're really aware of now that we want to really use for the benefit of the kids is stuff like AR. You know, AR has absolutely blown my mind seeing stuff that AR can do. But again, what I don't want to fall into the trap of, you see something, it looks amazing, you spend a load of money on it, but actually there's no real strategy around what you're going to do with it and the impact that it's going to have and the benefit it's going to have. So we've kind of, we're aware that it's there, but we've kind of spent a lot of time planning strategically for that in terms of what tech have we got, what tech do we need, where do we want to go, and how we're going to get there. And the why is really important. And in the past, I don't think the why has been clear enough. The why has been, oh, that looks good, let's get it in, as opposed to, why are we doing it? What's the impact it's going to have? And
the kind of the long-term effect of
how
absolutely. That's going to impact, you know, the pupil, the teacher, and how they take that forward into life, really. Okay. And so as a leader of you know, as a chief exec, how do you keep up to speed? I mean, I'm in the industry, and it's like I'm feeling a bit archaic at the moment because it moves so quickly. How do you stay ahead of the curve and say, well, actually, you know what, this is where we need to be, this is where we need to go in? Because I think, you know, one of the signs of a good leader is understanding what needs to be done. You don't have to be an expert in it. But you think, actually, well, this is the direction it's going in. This is where education is going, and we need to be on that path. So how do you keep up to date with the new technology, because it's changing so quickly? What's your tactic of doing that?
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, one, I've got a really great IT team. So the guy that leads on technology across the trust is part of my senior team. He's not a teacher, he's not from a teaching background. He's part of the business team, the central support team, and he's really up to speed with new tech and developments, and he really keeps his finger on the pulse in that respect. And as I said, he's very much part of the core leadership team, and he's always looking for ways that we can work that are more efficient using technology, both inside the classroom and outside the classroom, both in terms of teaching, learning, and in terms of our business function. And then both him and I, and I think part of me is just a natural technophobe. I'm just, I do sort of think back to the pros and cons of, if we didn't have all of this technology, would we be in a better place? And I think the visit to Apple really helped. And I perhaps wouldn't have been the natural choice to go on that visit.
Okay.
Within my organisation, and the reason that I decided to go was for the reasons that you just mentioned. As the leader of the organisation, in a world where where technology is becoming more and more important and central to how we operate, I really needed to give myself a kick up the backside and go into that environment and try to learn from it. And then you've got colleagues, heads and CEOs within education who are absolute visionaries and trailblazers, and it's about being aware of what they're doing and how they're doing it and the impact that has. And it's about getting out and visiting schools and academies and talking to other leaders. And I know that there are schools and multi-academy trusts out there that are utilising technology far better than we are, where their children have a far better understanding of the digital world and how it can benefit them and how it impacts on the world than our kids. So it's about speaking to people like that. It's about learning from them, but also having people in house who really understand that world. And understand the positive impact it can have, and those people that can advise caution when it's necessary. And I think I've got those people internally, but also it's about having those external contacts, and the recent events have been a perfect example of how technology that was already there, that we've kind of perhaps half-heartedly used. This, for example, where now it's part and parcel, it's every day, and I suspect that's the case for millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people around the world, where technology that already exists that can enhance working practice is now being used every day as opposed to occasionally. Perhaps a bit of a novelty before, and now essential. So then, even navigating that, what's the best way to do it? How do we what works for us? How can we best utilize it? What are the pitfalls? Those sorts of things, and having people there to advise, to say, no, don't go this way. Perhaps we need to try this way. Those sorts of things are really helpful, both externally and internally.
And I just kind of just as a lead on from what you're saying is, I was just reading just the other day that we were on this path of digital adoption. We've done 2 years adoption in 2 months. That's how quickly the change is. Because of coronavirus, that's how quickly it's brought this whole thing together, And even in our industry, even in my business, we didn't do Zooms. Now it's kind of a big thing now, and taking out one of our platforms like Digital Zone and you telling your real digital story online, which gets to a lot more people. To do, put a lot of effort into events, getting people there, if they're going to turn up, etc., etc. They can consume this information as and when they want. You know, it's all about customization and personalization. So let me take you back to probably 2006. Yeah, another education establishment.
Yeah.
In the US, Harvard University. A chap by the name of Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
Tried to put this platform together called the Facebook. Yeah. How has social?
I wish I was there. And I lent him a tenner.
With it, yeah, and the twins and all that kind of stuff. You know, so we won't go into that. Yeah. So fundamentally, social media has changed every part of our lives. In fact, you know, and it's had a huge impact on lots of different industries, from sales and marketing to you know, to product launches, etc., etc. And it's had a huge impact, both positive and negative, on the education system and sector. How have you dealt with that? When did the education sector first think that this could be really good, or this could be really bad, and particularly around you know, protection and usage, etc., etc., protecting the children from, you know, the obvious, protecting teachers? How has that impacted your business? How has that impacted your policies? And what is it that you've put in place to kind of mitigate some of those risks, and how have you used it positively as well?
So I think this is something that we've done quite well with, certainly in terms of security and child protection. You know, I think we've been on it right from the start. So you know, just from use of the internet. Yeah. And how families are using the internet, and really you know, working with the parents from a very early point in time, when we realised that more and more people were getting connected. And when I became head of Prince Albert in 2009, this community fund, Aston Pride, had part of that was paying for families to get online. Okay. And that happened fairly recently. So the school had already begun to work with families about the dangers and pitfalls, and you know, it was chat rooms in those days, wasn't it? You know, and that sort of thing. So our sort of safeguarding, the safeguarding element of that side of things. So the safeguarding element in our child protection, the digital element of our child protection policies, the online element, and you know, online safety, sort of began prior to my arrival as head in that school, and they were already a school that were very aware of the dangers. So we worked hard with our parents in terms of awareness, and what to do and how to do it, and how to protect their kids. The big game changer for us was smartphones. Kids having access to smartphones, you know, because you know there were 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds in their bedrooms with internet access on a phone, and a lot of our parents really didn't understand what the kids had access to. So they were able to manage the family PC or the family laptop, you know, keep it in a communal area, whatever. But actually, when it came to the phone, they didn't really understand, and we had to do a lot of work on that. We, in terms of use of social media, again, we do a lot of work with our children. Our children are really aware of online safety. They're aware of the dangers. They're aware of the pitfalls. They're aware of the positives and negatives of social media. You know, the bullying side of it, the you know, sexual exploitation side of it, all of those sorts of things. We do a lot of work with our parents and our children in that regard. So I think we do quite well. In terms of us as an organisation and sort of utilisation of social media, I think that's something that we've probably been doing more and more in the last couple of years. You know, a lot of our schools are on Twitter, a lot of our staff are on Twitter, and again, a lot of work has had to be done with staff and their digital security and their digital footprint, and what they're posting, where they're posting, how they're posting. And often we find that when we go into a school, and you know, we tend to go into failing schools, those guidelines, those expectations aren't in place.
Okay.
And it's one of the things that we have to do with staff very, very quickly, to say, look, anything that you post could be a reflection on you as a professional, the organisation. This is what you can do, this is what you can't do. So we have professional development sessions with our staff in terms of how to use Twitter, do's, don'ts, that sort of thing. And the big one for us at the moment is, as you're aware, we're opening a school next year, and we are promoting that through social media, and that's just about to take off. That kind of marketing aspect of that is just about to take off. So we've not done that before as an exercise for a single school in the way that we're having to do it, because we're a brand new school with a brand new cohort of kids that we need to attract, and the part of the strategy to attract parents and children is the digital strategy.
And it's really good to see that, because the previous one that I talked about, we do some work with Brian at Bishop Easy, and I know know Brian, and one of the things that kind of really sealed the deal, as it were, working with those, was the fact that I think in the meeting I said many years ago, the web part of any organisation used to sit with the IT department. Now completely shifted, and it should sit in the comms and the marketing department, because the technology is the enabler. And it's so important now for people to understand that, and still going to organisations, and it still sits with finance, and it still sits with the IT department. And it's great to see that you're forward thinking, that you understand that actually that's where that sits. If we're going to have an outward facing persona of the school, it's going to sit in the marketing department, and we use the technology to deliver our message to our community. And I think you've got that bang on, which is really good. So coming to present day now, with the backdrop of what's going on, there's a project that I'm personally working on. It's called the Child Action Poverty Forum, and as we know, what's happened is with the coronavirus pandemic, there's a lot of children in our city right now who are digitally excluded, because they're below the poverty line. They don't have PCs, they don't have connectivity, and they just don't have access to education, for example, or being a wider part of the community. Because having kind of got under the bonnet of this, I've realised that actually, it's not just education, but a lot of these children, they're digitally excluded, which means that they're excluded from society. In many respects, they can't get information, they can't access services, etc. So, what challenges have you faced with the lockdown in terms of this scenario, and what have you done to address it?
I think the vulnerabilities in our community are something that we live with. It's part and parcel of the work that we do. So the poverty that you speak about is something that's very, very real for us, and we're dealing with very, very unfortunate regularity with families being made homeless, where we've had to set up a hardship fund. We're often referring families to food banks. We're often buying food parcels for families, and other necessities such as school uniforms. So it's poverty, unfortunately, is very much a part of what we do, and what we have to, is one of the challenges that we have to address in order to give our children the best possible education, the best possible life chances. And our work is that's a central aspect of our work, and the digital poverty is very much a part of that. So you've got a practical approach in terms of, so for example, where we've put online content for those who can access it. We've also produced physical paper packs for families who don't have access to the online stuff. Often even those families where there is access and there is kit, there might be one PC or one laptop, there might be 3 or 4 children. You know, there might be a couple of teenagers at secondary school, or, you know, a couple of primary age, and they all need to get online. They all need to do the online content, and they, you know, and it might be the family device that's used by both parents and 2, 3, 4 kids. You know, so there's that aspect of it as well. I think where communication is being helped is, you know, there tends to be at least one smartphone in the vast majority of households.
Yeah.
So that helps. That certainly helps with communication.
Yeah.
And that helps with the advice that we can give. It doesn't enable the kids to get online and access the work in the way that they put on a tablet or a laptop or a PC, but it aids the communication. And then what it's about is the amount of time that children have been out of school, and this is the case across the board, not just in terms of use of technology and understanding of how technology can enhance learning or learning about technology. It's across the board. You know, we are very, very good as an organisation of ensuring that the kids who've missed out are able to catch up. You know, yeah. Our model is based on going to schools where often the educational diet for a lot of the youngsters in that school has been deficient for quite a long time, and they've fallen behind. And we've got very good at catching them up, and not only them catching up, but exceeding where perhaps they should be, as long as we have them for long enough. And the IT side of things is very much a part of that, you know. Yeah. But you know, it's a simple fact of life that there are the haves and the have-nots, and we will do everything in our power to support those that have less. Yeah. Whatever form that might be that in terms of technology, be that in terms of nutrition, you know, whatever it happens to be. Yeah. But ultimately, you know, we live in a fundamentally unequal society, and we feel that we're very much at the forefront of that challenge, and we will continue fighting the good fight. And even though sometimes it feels like a fight that we aren't winning, and that we may never win, it doesn't stop us fighting it, and it doesn't stop the determination that we have to turn this around. You know, we're fundamental in our belief that, as it was for me, education is that one opportunity to change lives, to achieve social justice, and in whatever way we can, we will do what we can to make up that shortfall.
Well, I must pick your brains once this project goes live, and I'll you know, come and seek your advice.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And final 2 questions, Sajid. Okay. Not been that difficult, has it?
No.
Fast forward a couple of years' time, where do you think the education market is going to be in terms of technology? What do you see happening more of in the next few years?
I think two or three things that really come to mind. One, you know, I mentioned the colleague who talks about the letting tech do the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
So in terms of how the whole thing is organized, in terms of how teachers are using and accessing resources, but also in terms of how they're communicating within the classroom. So one simple example, right? So you're a teacher, you've taught a primary school teacher, you've taught a writing lesson, there are 30 pieces of writing to mark. Yeah. Okay, and give feedback to. So you traditionally you do that in a couple of ways, right? You go around the classroom as the kids are working. You as they're working, you intervene and you question and you move their learning on, and you know a lot of it you can do that way. Or you know there's something that they're all doing that you need them to improve on or to understand. You stop the class, you make that teaching point because it's maybe half the class, and that really helps. Or you take the books in and you mark them and you give the books back, and the kids get feedback. And most teachers probably do all 3. Yeah. Okay. And now we live in a world where, in theory, you've got children who've got access to iPads. As you're working, they've, you know, child Cassie finishes his paragraph. Yeah. I get a ping on my iPad. I have a look at Kasim's paragraph. I can say, Kasim, check your second sentence, and then send it back to me. I don't think the grammar's correct.
Yeah.
Kasim sitting at his table,
Yeah.
it either comes up as a word bubble or he gets it in his ear. Kasim, you look at it and say, oh, actually, thanks. You know, it's live feedback.
Wow.
It saves a huge amount of time. You know, kids can upload their work and it can be sent back and forth really, really easily. The teacher can take control of all the iPads and demonstrate something very, very quickly. Teacher can lock the iPads. The teacher can direct the kids to a page or a website or a video or a bit of content. That real digital flexibility, that real dexterity in how that relationship between child and adult works within the classroom.
Yeah.
One, it's got the potential to improve the quality of feedback.
Yeah.
You know, the research shows that the feedback that's done with the child present is far more effective than the feedback they get in the book written the next day.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of their learning, it saves the teacher a huge amount of time.
Yeah.
It improves the teacher's knowledge of what the child has done that day.
Right.
And therefore improves the teacher's ability, enhances the teacher's ability to impact on the child's learning. Yeah. And you know, the winner for the teachers is that massive reduction in workload. Okay, yeah. So that's one aspect of it in terms of workflow for teachers. I think and what's needed there again is that really clear strategy and plan around how that's going to be achieved, professional development and learning for the teachers, the opportunities to try it, you know, and all that sort of thing. And it needs a really, really clear plan if you can achieve what you want to achieve from that. So that's one aspect of it. I think it's really important. I think the other aspect, which is connected, you know, I mentioned AR earlier.
Yeah.
And I think AR is a really, really exciting new world, and it could really, really enhance the learning experience of youngsters, particularly those in the communities that we served in disadvantaged neighborhoods, you know, where you can get, I don't know, something as simple as a rare artifact in a museum on the other side of the world, and have it in front of you in 3D and manipulate it and examine it, and you know, and look at it as it is now, and look at it as it would have been 2,000 or 3,000 years ago in its original glory. You know, things that I've seen, for example, you know, on the table in front of them, a 3D model of the water cycle, you know, or of a beating heart and the impact that exercise has on it. You know, all those sorts of things. And all the things that we talk about in terms of our youngsters perhaps lacking the opportunity to have the experiences that more affluent youngsters may have, that you can bring those experiences into the classroom. You know, and have it in almost live, you know, in terms of AR, and interact with it, which you can't do with the video necessarily. You know, and again, I think the important thing around that is that very, very clear strategy and plan.
Yeah, and I suppose that would kind of create, in essence, utopia, some sort of digital equality, wouldn't it? That you know, you've got these rich kids that get all the access to all this amazing stuff, but also with a VR headset on, you can get there and have an experience that's really enriched.
I mean, one of the things you mentioned, VR. One of the things that we're going to do with our kids is give them a virtual tour of the new school using the VR headsets. You know, so at the moment it's a school. The steels are up. I saw it yesterday. It looks great. Because you were there when we were just. If you drive past, the steels are up. You know, so they can have a virtual tour of a school. Before they apply, and the school's, you know, only half up at the moment. So those sorts of experiences, you know, really help on the marketing side of it. But you know, we're using VR headsets in the classroom at the moment.
Amazing. Final question, Sajid. Thank you so much for your time. What's your favourite app? And why?
Right, I'm going to have to think about this one. What's my favourite? Can I have a look down at my phone? Let me have a look at my phone. What's my favourite app? That's well, you use them for different things, don't you? So, I mean, if I look at my phone now, I've got Football Manager 19 mobile.
Okay.
I love my little Tabata app for exercise. I've got my walking app, which I love when I go for a walk. So I suppose it depends on what you're doing and when you're doing it. You know, got my little booking.com app that comes out every now and again.
Just the other day, I called a friend. I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm playing football." I said, "Are you playing football?" He goes, "Oh, it's Villa. I'm Villa, you know, on the PlayStation."
Yeah.
I'm a big Villa fan like you. And he goes, just getting into the Champions League, so I'll speak to you later. So it's probably Football Manager. I don't play games.
Yeah. To be fair, I've not been on that for a good few months. I downloaded that for the journey. You know, I was lucky enough to go back and forth to Pakistan a few times since September. So I downloaded it for the I'd say probably Amazon. Amazon. I've got
one of these interviews. Amazon is probably
I've got about 70 books on my wish list at the moment.
Have you?
Yeah. So I've got a very, very long wish list.
What are you reading at the moment?
Do you know what? I've just received today a book that I ordered from the States. I couldn't find it anywhere. It was only on Kindle, but I wanted The Falcon of Andalusia, and it's a historical novel about Abdurrahman I, the first Umayyad Khalif of Andalusia, which a fascinating story. Honestly, I think it'd make a brilliant miniseries anywhere.
Yeah.
But I've just read the first chapter and it didn't disappoint. Yeah. So I've just started that today.
Sajid, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, very soon. Very soon.
Thank you so much, and it's been an absolutely fascinating.
Thanks, mate.
Conversation.
Thank you.
50 minutes in, and I know we're going to share it now. So thank you so much. I'm going to just stop recording now.
Yeah.